Hey everybody, welcome to the Academy of Insurance's weekly webinar after show. I'm your host, George, and joining me for today's after show is the director of the Academy of Insurance, Mr. Patrick Reid, and also our instructor for today's webinar, Workers' Compensation Insurance Basics, Mr. Frank Pennachio. Frank, welcome to the after show. I think this is your third one, if I'm not mistaken, and welcome.
Great to have you, George and Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be with you, gentlemen. I like this after show concept you've come up with. It's nice to have a little informal conversation. Oftentimes, we say informal learning is sometimes the best learning. So I appreciate you giving me this opportunity as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And you began today's class with a little bit of history, like a kind of an overview of the history of workers' comp in general. It made me think of great workers' comp moments in the movies, and a couple of great cinematic workers' comp moments was, a couple that come to my mind was the scene in the Ten Commandments where, Moses has the Hebrews open the temple granaries and they all have a day of rest, like he gives them a little comp day,
Right.
Another one that your class made me think of today was the scene in Fist, Federation of Interstate Truckers, where Sylvester Stallone as Johnny Kovac and his fellow union delegates go to the class at the trucking thing, and they have one of the guys. He looks like Carl Malden, but he isn't Carl Malden. He's like, we weren't thinking of having you, Mr. Talbot. We weren't thinking of having you just lending the money, but paying the bills. And then Sylvester Stallone says something I can't repeat in an after show. I'm not sure if I can. And Mr. Talbot, the old gentleman's like, and what did you mean by that crudity, Mr. Kovac? And so their attempt at workers' comp doesn't go as planned. But Frank, do you have any favorite cinematic workers' comp movie moments? I
off the top of my head, I can't think of one, or I can't think of one right now where that might be the case. But there's even rumors. I didn't feel comfortable putting it in because I can validate the 1911, the 1948, but there's some reference to that. This goes back BC. That injured employees were taken care of, or injured slaves, whatever the case may be, the culture it may be, go back to the BC days. But work comp is a great concept. It's got its flaws, it's got its problems, it's got its abuses, but the intent is a good intent. You get hurt in the course and scope of employment, don't worry about your medical. Not a nickel out of your pocket, no deductibles, no copays, unlimited. Just get the care you need to get well. And the indemnity side of it, I think, could probably be boosted up a little bit in some states, but the intent is good. We will take care of you with all the flaws, all the failings, all the abuses. It's a good system. It really is a good system.
I think you might be mentioning ancient Sumeria, 2000 BC. That was the first work comp instance. If I
sure. You amaze me. I love that. Thank you, George. Now my day is full.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.
That's great.
Patrick, wonderful class today. Lots of great facts and a great overview of the basics, which we all need every once in a while or initially. What are your thoughts on today's class?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a workers' comp book that we've published that takes us back to even some pirate workers' comp. So, and we're not talking about Pittsburgh. We're not talking about Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're talking pirates. Captain Jack Sparrow.
Who says insurance can't be fun, Patrick? Who says insurance can't be fun?
Not us.
Not us. But to get back to the basics of any coverage, I think it's always important. You've never been doing it so long that you can't go back and get a reminder of what it is that you're dealing with. And Frank said it so well that workers' comp is simple, but that does not make it easy. and it is complex, and the simplest thing from I've got an employee that lives in Florida but works in Alabama, that creates an issue. Or I've got an employee that might be doing a job in Arkansas, that might create an issue. Or even we've got an employee working on going aboard a ship in the Mississippi Delta. Those kinds of issues that Frank brought out that really can complicate something that's really supposed to be fairly straightforward. And we didn't, not even talking about the issues that can come up with misclassifying employees, or when you go get your first workers' comp audit and you didn't properly report payroll, all those issues that can come up. I mean, that new business owner, I would hate to be the insurance agent for a new business owner that doesn't realize that work comp is an auditable policy. No, no, but so these are the kinds of things that were part of the reason why we wanted Frank to do this basics level course, because it's simple but not easy.
Yeah, and we all get attracted to the complexity, and it's fun to talk about, but we really do we owe it to our community to make certain they've got the basics down, and to build from there. And the Academy's done a great job. You've done that all across multiple lines, where you've got the various levels, and people can plug in, where they fit. And I think having this foundational course is great. Then if somebody's interest was piqued today about, I want to know more about this, there's on demand out there. And we didn't even, as you mentioned, yes, audits are a big headache, especially if somebody opens up their very first construction company. Watch out, because that hired uninsured subcontractors and the messes around that. But the thing we didn't take on today that we've taken on the past courses that probably still is basic, and that is, it's about treating injured employees well and getting them the best medical treatment and helping them to recover. And I'm a little bit disconcerted that our profession, well, we have to keep in mind, first of all, that work comp is a very, very small part of the medical spend in the country.
Yep.
The medical spend is like 3.5 trillion, and we're like 60 some billion or something like that. I mean, it's like, we're not even the flea on the tail of the dog. We're the speck on the flea on the tail of the dog. So we have to kind of go along with what's happening in the medical community. But there are things we can do to help employers make certain their employees get the right medical treatment when injured and get better and recover as expected. Because I think that's not only a great financial endeavor, it's ethically and morally the right thing to do. And there's fabulous doctors out there, and there's some they don't tend to practice evidence-based treatment protocols, and employees get worse. And so that's part of the basics too. Employee gets injured, we want to get the best care at the right time and recover when we expect them to recover. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that too. In some speaking engagements that I do, and getting back to them now, Patrick, we spoke about that. I'll often ask agents, you sell workers' compensation insurance? Yes. Do you think it's your responsibility? Do you think that you should be accountable, that when you sell that policy, that the carrier you're representing has a process in place to manage and monitor great care for injured employees? Because some do. Some have outsourced so much of that job, they don't even know what's going on anymore. They've outsourced to managed care networks, and they've outsourced this, and they've outsourced that. And I don't think they have any line of sight into how their own product is performing. So we want to keep that in focus too. Just let's make certain injured employees get the best care, recover, because it's not just about, return to work and reducing the length of the injury episode and reducing the cost of the claim. It's about that. It's about lives. It's about the injured employee's life and their family. And we know bad things happen to people and their families when someone doesn't recover from a work-related injury, even if it was a relatively minor one that just spiraled out of control.
For sure. Yeah. And this is you make a great point there. It's about the people and about the families. And I had a question. There are certain states they call them monopolistic states.
Right.
We touched on that briefly, and there's only a few left.
Four left.
Four left.
Right.
And in my time in insurance, I was underwriting risks in West Virginia.
Right.
That was a monopolistic state.
That's right.
But we watched them take that from a monopolistic state to a market-based state,
right.
very successfully even.
Right.
Do you think the monopolistic states will convert anytime in the near future?
I thought they would until relatively recently. Ohio and Washington State, of course, have large populations. Those are the two largest monopolistic. North Dakota and Wyoming, I don't think anybody cares what they do because it's just there's not a lot of people there. It's beautiful, beautiful country. I like to go visit, but
we love you, Wyoming.
We love Wyoming
and
North Dakota. And thank you for the natural gas coming out of North Dakota. That's helping keep our energy prices down. Thank you very much. You're contributing a lot. But Ohio and Washington State are the two biggest, most populated. And a number of years ago, Ohio had some scandals on how the surplus was being handled. And I go, here's where we're going to see that domino drop because there was some ugliness that was going on. But interestingly, Patrick, people don't like change. I've never seen where the claimants' attorneys, the employers, the unions, everybody jumped in and said, don't change the system. We like it the way it is. And these are typically adversaries, typically people that have competing interests. Well, all those folks got in alignment. And since then, they instituted some reforms, and Ohio in particular, Washington State as well. I kind of keep track of, they're getting extraordinary results and outcomes, and their cost to employers are coming way down, and the employees are getting great care. So they're performing very, very well right now. The scandals are way, way, way in the rearview mirror, and they're performing well. I don't see it in my lifetime because I think there would have to be years of just really bad performance and maybe another scandal or two. I know that there's, interest from the carrier world. They'd like to have, Ohio's a very populated state. It's got a lot of manufacturing still. It's a very industrial state. Washington State's a lot going on there. The carrier world would love to have them. But, and of course, we'd be happy to take North Dakota and Wyoming as well. But I don't see it. I just don't see it. I think that, I think they're performing well. And if they're performing well, the employers are going to want to leave things well enough alone. And apparently everybody's kind of settled into their routine. When you see plaintiff attorneys and employers and unions on the same side, all saying, don't mess with this, I think the status quo will prevail.
My question was kind of like sort of an offshoot of Patrick's was, you started the class talking about the 1908 FILA Act pretty much.
Right.
Started by Teddy Roosevelt, and then Congress passed the law.
Right.
When did all that become deconfederated? Were all the states under one thing, and then was it World War II or the Depression, or when around that time? Do you know when that all kind of everyone started doing their own thing, or? It's a great question. Insurance has always been a state-run thing, and I think 1911. Think back to 1911, folks. States' rights was a big issue. Okay. We don't want to get into the ugly part of the history about that 1908, 1911 period, but states' rights was a big issue. And I would not be surprised if it arose out of, look, we want to have some control over this in our state. And, then we can make decisions about our own state's benefits and how we're going to, how our employees, I'm speculating a bit, but, that was a challenging time. We were supposed to be out of Reconstruction, and we were still working our differences out from 1863, and so it was still a transformative time in the country. And I think the states were pounding their fists that they wanted more control over more things. A little bit of speculation there, George, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. No, that's more speculative reasoning than I had before I answered the question. So that's great. No problem from me. That's no, that's why we have these classes and we have these after shows, to talk about these things. So no, that's
Well,
perfectly.
and George, some days I am careful because there are days when I say, geez, can't we just have a national standard on X, Y, and Z? Because, for example, if someone gets injured in the the Sunshine State here, the great state of Florida, they call it the Sunshine State because we pay people with sunshine sometimes. The wages are not that great, and that average weekly wage that I talked about during the session is capped. Well, the state cap here in Florida is very, very low, and I think I think it should be higher. I think injured employees should get 66 and 2/3% of their average weekly wage tax free without a cap, or at least with a high cap. But if you go to Illinois, the cap is double. Now, why should someone that gets hurt in Illinois have double the average weekly wage calculation than people in Florida? And that's where I get, gosh, it seems like there should be some national standards that apply across the board. Then we're going to have that would also, present just a feeling of fairness. And that's something that I think we should up the indemnity or uncap those limits and let people get a little bit, 66 and 2/3% tax free. But if you cap it at $700 a week, what would 66 and 2/3% be if you didn't have the cap? So there's some issues. We got some work to do. As I mentioned, I think this is a good system, but there's competing interest, and work comp costs have probably never been lower. Injuries are way down for 2 decades. Fewer people are getting hurt. I don't think work comp rates have ever been lower. The industry is healthy and profitable. The combined loss ratio in 2020 was 0.87. We could pay some more benefits. I remember there were days I was selling work comp, the combined was 120. It was crazy. It was one of the most, carriers rather write pollution coverage than workers' compensation at some points. But we've got a healthy industry. It's a profitable line. It's crazy profitable with a 0.87, and it's been running in the high 80s for years now. That's extraordinary. Let's open up and give the employees a few more benefits, or let's amp it up a little bit. I think that we could readjust that a little bit on the indemnity side.
You kind of mentioned, you sort of alluded to one of your other classes, Frank, that we have on demand. Workers' comp rates are down, but significant rates are up. So thank you for plugging that. Really appreciate
I think because that's the thing that's one of the things that bothers me, George, is that people feel there's no pain in work comp because rates are down. There's plenty of pain in work comp. Right. The risks we talked about in today's class, other risks that we talk about in that on-demand class. Don't let rate declines, make you complacent about that. Just because rates aren't up, that doesn't mean there's not big problems and big risks to employers. And the good news is fewer employees are getting hurt every year. That's great news, and apparently that is projected for some years ahead. At some point, it may flatten out. But workplaces are safer. Automation is more prevalent, and good things are happening in that regard. So, we just need to keep that trend going. The one troublesome trend that has not changed, though, is automobile fatalities in the course and scope of employment. Yep. There's still that's still the same line. It's not gone down for decades, which is quite disconcerting. And I think it distracted driving hasn't helped it. That's for sure. And people that are in the passenger side of their Tesla is not helping either when they think it's fully autonomous and it's not yet. But good things are happening out there, and it's great to see that when there's fewer injuries, there's less human suffering. There's fewer risk of really bad results happening. There's fewer risks of people getting stuck in the medical system and maybe getting caught up in narcotic prescriptions and unnecessary surgery and the rest. So whenever I see, every year I track that number with NCCI, and it's just great to see we're averaging almost a 4% decline every single year for the past 20 years. Let's celebrate that. Now let's go to work on getting traffic fatalities down in the workplace. That would be helpful. That we haven't moved that at all.
Absolutely. I'd like to also before we wrap up the after show, say that any insurance professionals from North Dakota or Wyoming, please email support@iajacademy.com. We have a special promotion for just people in those states. Or if you know anybody that is interested, that knows somebody in North Dakota or Wyoming, reach out to them and have them email support@iajacademy.com.
I didn't mean to dismiss them, that we didn't care, that they came into the voluntary insurance world and it's just that it's about economic activity, George, where we're going to, I feel bad for North Dakota anyhow. I mean, South Dakota's got Mount Rushmore. North Dakota doesn't. So that's, they've already got challenges there. Maybe they should just take the line away and call it the Dakotas, and everybody could be happy up there and just go crazy. But beautiful part of the country, absolutely, and appreciate them helping us with our energy needs.
Frank Pennachio's indirect plea for 49 states instead of. But a topic for another time.
We'll combine the Dakotas into the state of Dakota, and we'll cut South Florida off into its own state.
There you go. That's probably a wise move.
I didn't really mean that. I love South Florida.
I love the visit. Love the visit. That's
South Florida is great. It's really the best South Florida there is.
Well, on behalf of our instructor today, Frank Pennachio, excuse me, and our director, Mr. Patrick Raitt, I'd like to say thanks everybody for coming to the after show. And Frank, let's get you back on the calendar soon. I don't know if you are or not, but
always a pleasure. It's a joy to be with you and your participants, and always great to speak with you. And thanks for this opportunity. Like I said, this maybe somebody might have learned something in this informal setting. I think that was the thing people tell me they missed with the lack of face-to-face. It was the informal discussions over dinner, breakfast, adult beverages, just hanging around on breaks. And informal learning is an important thing. And you folks infused it in here in this structure, and it feels great. So thanks for the opportunity to participate with you.
My only ask, Frank, is that when you come back, you bring a couple of your favorite workers' comp moments in cinema.
Moments in movies. I'll go to work on that, George. I will certainly go to work on that. I'll see what comes to mind. My movie interests are typically from not too many years ago, but years ago. I mean, I'll break into a son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? I mean, that's kind of where I go, that era. So I'll have to think about work comp in that era with A Few Good Men, Scent of a Woman, the Michael Douglas when he was president. That era is kind of some of my favorite movies came from them. And then it goes back to Jimmy Stewart. So I'll think about it, George. But thanks for the challenge on that, and thanks for sharing yours. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Frank. Really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
On behalf of Patrick Raitt and Frank Pennachio, this is George saying take care, everybody, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you again. Take care. Be well.